Welcome to the Making It podcast. I'm your host, Kyler Miles, and on this show, we interview guests about their journey of making their dreams a reality. We talk about everything from self-awareness to building confidence in yourself and to take action so that you can make your dreams a reality. Well, welcome to the Making It podcast. I am your host, Kyler Miles, and today I have the wonderful and amazing Lindsay. Thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing? How's the quarantine? Are you surviving?
I am surviving quarantine. Last night we did, I'm Jewish, so last night we did Passover, well, 2 nights in a row, Passover by virtual Zoom, which took a lot of explaining to anyone that's not a podcaster or a elementary school student, but we did it and it went well. And I just have to manage to not kill anyone for the next however many, weeks.
Good luck with that. It's been tough. I went out and Starbucks does drive-through, so I got, for the first time in maybe 6 weeks, got Starbucks, and I'm just enjoying it so much. It's the small things that we take for granted, right?
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, give the listeners a little intro on who you are, what you're all about, how we got connected, and we'll take it from there.
I think we used to date, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's where I recognize it.
I think it was a one-night stand. You never called me, Tinder or whatever. Sorry, I couldn't help it. My name is Lindsay Weisner. I am a clinical psychologist, currently accidentally specializing in suicidal teenagers. I am also so I have my doctorate, and then I did some research in child and family development for the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health, which I think falls in with like the WHO and CDC and all the other things that are now becoming part of our daily vocab. I did some research in child and family development, and then I also did some postdoc work after I got my doctorate. And I recently, sadly, released a book. Books on happiness, but the sadness was the release date was March 20th. The release party was March 18th, and the U.S. quarantine started the 15th. So, punch in the gut.
I had a violin. I could play it. I think it'd be there you go.
Well, my son plays the viola. Not that we know where it is at this point, but since school ended. But it's been a lifelong dream to be a writer. And the book is called 10 Steps to Finding Happy. I can't remember if I said that, but you should buy it. If you buy it, it will turn you invisible and possibly give you corona immunities. Just throwing that out there. Obviously, disclaimer, I'm lying.
Yeah.
But so I never thought I would write a self-help book, and yet I did end up doing it. Finally, that should be my making it moment. I also have my own podcast. I'm the host of the Neurotic Nourishment podcast, and it's kind of smart, sweary moms and non-moms talking about things that we're not encouraged to talk about at cocktail parties, but that we should all talk about, like racism and chauvinism and things that make people uncomfortable, but that also make them educated. And then most recently, I accidentally got myself a blog on Psychology Today, and it's called The Venn Diagram Life. And that's pretty cool because the summer before my senior year of college, I was an intern in New York City for Psychology Today, and I think I was pretty lousy at it, but here I am.
You know what I love? You talk about you accidentally fell into this.
Yeah.
And I find that now that I'm interviewing more guests, I hear that more often. That, I didn't even know this was something I'd be interested in or passionate about. And how did that happen for you? Like, obviously accidental, but walk us through kind of what steps or what obstacles or opportunities came about so that you went down this path to ultimately writing this book, which I 100% agree with, because we focus way too much on money and status instead of finding happiness. But I'm curious about that kind of journey leading to that, and then maybe we can dive into what the book really talks about in itself. But excuse me,
Sure.
yeah.
So we say accident, but I also think of it as sort of like a serendipity type thing. We could also call them ghosts or spirits, or like the shrink in me wants to call it some sort of unconscious learning, unconscious intellect that we don't pick up on at the time, but that our brain perceives. So I have wanted to be a writer since I was 7. My first book, totally plagiarized. My main characters were Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy. So. And it involved a tornado. It was probably a total ripoff. And I typed it on a typewriter, and I was 7. And so this was like the early 80s-ish. And needless to say, it was not a success. But as I went on through school, I always knew I wanted to write, but I did not want to write what people told me to write, which sort of ruled me out as a school newspaper person in high school. And then I wrote a little bit of poetry and short stories, but I also realized that poetry was just for angsty teens, and I had a lot of reason to be but I didn't feel it. So I went into college where I couldn't get into the regular biology course because they were closed out. And then I had to take this other behavioral biology course, which basically turned out to be kind of like a mix between biology and psychology and social psychology. And the general gist is humans are just like animals. We do things to survive. Social psychology is based on this, as is regular psychology. And I just happened to end up in this class because the other one was closed out. So I really liked psychology. So the following year I transferred to Georgetown because I had a boyfriend that went to school around there. And so that apparently was reason enough for my parents to let me transfer, but also it was Georgetown, so fine. And I took my first intro to psych course. I fell in love with the professor in a non-icky way. And then really psychology. And I took like 3 classes with him by the end of that first year, my sophomore year. And I really decided I was already going to major in English because obviously I was going to be a writer. A writer who didn't want to write what other people told them to. It made a lot of sense at the time. And so I went to this professor really just to get the blessing of just to get his blessing. He was an amazing professor, kind of a dickhead though. Like on my first test, I answered the question. It was like short answer, and I answered it, and then went on to say what the next step of the neurotransmitter process is because I was that obsessed with it. And he took off 8 points for that. Like legitimately kind of a dick, but I wasn't smart enough to know it. Yeah. And I had my own family issues going on where I think I was just looking for some sort of approval for an adult, which probably means it's good I didn't end up sleeping with any older adults with a daddy complex, but did not. So I went to this professor during office hours and I asked him a foolish question about a class, and I was thinking about majoring, and what I really just wanted him to say was, I think you should major. You're really good at this. Because I had done really well in all 3 of the classes. I was very cute then. I was blonde, big boobs, 19. We're all really cute at 19. He looks me up and down and just goes, don't bother majoring. You'll never do anything with it. And I just stood there shocked and then walked away. And as I started crying, because I'm a big baby, I walked downstairs and went to the registrar, and you had to do this in person. It was a thing called a registrar back then. And I signed up to double major because fuck him. Like that, that was not going to happen. And I don't even know why he assured me that I was never going to do anything with it, except that now I do, because 90% of psych majors never do anything with it. But I did not like someone telling me what I could and could not do with the opportunities that I had created for myself. And so that's how I became a psych major. And then, and then I was a psych English major. And I ended up finding a mentor in the psych department who I liked a lot, and he liked me, and I told him what a dickhead that other teacher was. And I also, something about that experience made me braver, and I found my voice, I think in college, really. And I was writing for the newspaper because that was what writers did. And I was doing, I did the entertainment. I reviewed CDs and because it was, I reviewed like new music, which was kind of dumb because I'm not my dissertation was on music. I'm interested in music. I'm very emotionally moved by music, but I am not I don't know, it's weird. I'm not a music person, but I guess I am. But
like the same genres as everybody, maybe different tastes kind of thing, or
maybe, but it's not even like I'm cool enough to have like a unique genre that's mine, I like the music that from the 60s and 70s that my dad, played
classics,
and I listened to. Right, the classics. One of the first things I taught my brother when he went to college is if someone asks you if you like a band and you've never heard of them, just tell them you only like the old stuff.
I wish I knew that when I was younger.
Right.
That's good.
Sorry.
That's good. I like that.
We hooked up. I should have told you. But I thought it was a good line, and he said he tried it a lot and it works. But
I bet it would. Yeah.
It totally does. Think about it. Everyone's old stuff is better.
Yeah.
But I didn't know enough about music, history, to be writing a music column. But I did it for a bit, and then finally, I decided to ask. What I really wanted to do was write my opinions, I realized. And so I went over to the editor, and like all newspaper editors, he was dorky and awkward and hadn't matured as he should have. And I said to him, I remember, blonde and big boobs, I was like, I want my own column. He said, well, what do you want to write about? I was like, stuff. And I don't think I gave him much better of an explanation for it. But somehow he agreed, and then it did well. And then the next semester, the next newspaper guy, who was similar, just different, promoted me to twice a week. And so for junior and senior year of college, I got this column where twice a week I got to write 800 words on whatever I wanted to. And it was an amazing experience, and lots of things people hated. And I was like, okay, that's almost more powerful than people liking, because when you like something, you don't complain about it and write into the letter to the editor. And when you hate something, you do. So that was a fantastic experience. And then it somehow solidified my faith that I should be a writer, obviously. So I went and applied to U.S. News and World Report. It was a magazine. Now I think it's just a rating system. But I went because there was a friend of a friend had said that there was a job opening, and then was like, no, forget it. You don't want this job. And I was like, no, I really do. So I just graduated from Georgetown with a double major. It's a great school, and surely I'll get this job. And I go for the interview, and the woman's like, this doesn't require a high school diploma, and but I was convinced that this was going to be my in. And so I was I called myself fax girl. Sometimes I imagined there was a cape involved. And there were faxes about Beanie Babies and bullshit that would come into the main office. And I would take those faxes and bring them to whatever, writer, no doubt, just turned around and threw that shit in the trash.
I've never successfully used a fax. There's
no reason to. There's literally no reason to. I mean, it was such a short window of time that the fax world existed. And then the PDFs took over, so you could just write on it. There was no reason for anyone to ever fax. It was ridiculous. But I literally just walked around for I think it was 8 hours, minimum wage. I sort of hobnobbed with the reporters and tried to get in. And there was a copy editor job that I applied for once, but I didn't make it because grammar is not my strongest point, although I've gotten better at it since studying for the copy editor position. But all the while, I stayed in touch with the awesome instructor at Georgetown. His name is Professor Crystal. I'm not sure if he's there or not, but I had stayed in touch with him, and I would like visit with him like every so often and tell him about my horrible job. And so when there was an opening for a research assistant at the NIH, he nominated me, and I got it. And then I spent 2 years working with other like-minded, mostly women who had just graduated from college and were looking to go to graduate school. And then I guess that was what I wanted to do too. Like,
Yeah.
it was sort of this path of like, oh, that's what we do next. Okay, that's what we do.
You know what I love about your story is like a lot of people, since I've been documenting my journey of becoming this creative entrepreneur person, people have been reaching out to me asking like, how did you do it? Like, how did you go from your background where I was in sales, where I went to school and then I graduated, got the job, stayed the job for 5 or 6 years and moved up. And how do you leave all that to do what you're doing now? And how did you do it within 6 to 8 months?
Yeah.
And it was the drive to find this happiness, find this like, and I think you have it. Like hearing your story, there's so many roadblocks. People looked at you up and down and said, no way she can do that. And you said, you gave them the middle finger and you said, fuck that. Like, I'm going to go do what I'm set out to do. And no matter what challenges that came your way, when I'm listening to your story, you just go the next hurdle, next. And so many people I find don't have that drive or maybe don't have that confidence in themselves. I'm not quite sure. It could be a bit of both, but it's so cool and refreshing to hear that because, and I was like this too. I was very acceptance of people's opinions of me and became who I was. It became like, oh, they think I'm dumb, so I'm dumb. Like, I'm not the smart guy. I'm going to be the funny guy. Or, okay, I'm not the funny guy. I let people's opinions of me make who I am instead of me expressing who I actually was, which is I feel like I'm doing now for the first time. And I feel like that's so cool that the journey, no matter what roadblocks, you just overcame them. And you might have in the moment been frustrated and upset and cried, but at the end of the day, you came here, you made it here for a reason because of that passion, that drive.
I think it's actually sort of a defense mechanism because I won't say it's great self-esteem. I mean, now I feel a little bit differently most of the time, although obviously we all have our moments. But I think it's mostly a defense mechanism from a couple things. One is I found out almost a year ago as we were diagnosing one of my children with ADHD, I was looking at the form. I was like, I have ADHD. And I had spent my whole life being told I wasn't working up to my full potential by teachers, which I know is weird because of the doctor thing, but like, and I felt like I was all the time. So I sort of figured out that what you think of me isn't necessarily true. And then I also have a mother who, for her own little messed up reasons, would sort of paint me in one way, and it wasn't necessarily the person that I was. Like, she would describe my actions as negative and my brothers as more positive. Most parents have a favorite. Most parents don't belittle one of the children. But, I think I learned from these two things. Like, I knew I was trying as hard as I can. And I knew that the things that were being said about me were not true. And so I got to say, probably at an early age, well, there were lots of tears and driving around, like 16, driving around and crying just like sad songs on the radio. But then at some point it became, you know what? I got to get over this, or I'm never going to get over this. Yeah.
It's so sad to think how people's opinions of ourselves shape so much of our life.
Sure.
And it's for you could be your parents, could be so many people like you said, you're talking about your teacher, this amazing teacher that was a role model that you want to impress, that was, saw something in you that no one else would. And even though he might have been a dick, he, in his own way, he might have helped you. Right. And
sort of. Well, remember there were two. There was the one who was the dick, and then there's the one that was the role model and pushed me forward. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the dickhead helped me too, because I am used to winning the second time around and not the first,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's sort of good because it probably establishes resiliency.
Mm-hmm. I think your entire story establishes that, right? Like how no matter how many times you're driving that car, you made it here, right? And that's a message I guess I'm trying to get across to a lot of our viewers and people that ask me questions, like, who don't know where to start or are fearful to start or fearful to continue whatever stage they're at. Like, it's a moment in time that might hurt, but you can overcome it. And look at what you've done. Look at all that you've accomplished in yourself and education and writing this book. You from a very young age, you knew you want to be a writer, and now you are. Now you're hitting a couple of hiccups, of course, with
Oh yeah.
COVID-19, and man, like but it just it shows so much to who you are as a person, and I love that. Like
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I mean, listen, as you and I spoke about and I don't know how much you want me to get into it, but it's just a comical series of hiccups where, I before graduate school, I wrote a book, and I started graduate school, and my second day of graduate school was September 11th, like the September 11th, and I had been sending my manuscript out, and I was talking to one small new imprint about, we'd gone through like the first 3 chapters, the 50 pages, the first half, whatever. And then, of course, when the World Trade Towers fell, and we hit this huge economical slump. They were like, "Listen, I'm sorry, there's no way." And I had jumped through all these hoops. I thought I was there. And then after graduation, I had 2 children, and then I had some. My mother-in-law died totally unexpectedly, and then a childhood friend died, and then my daughter fell and fractured and dislocated her humerus, and my aunt went to prison, and I was depressed. And so a good part about depression, if there is one, is early wakings. You tend to wake up early, just your brain is too easily stimulated. And so I started writing another book, and I wrote a book, and I wrote a book. I was going to start shopping around agents, and then there was my aunt in prison had requested Cosmo magazine, and so I sent her a copy, and then I sent it, and while I was ordering it, they were like, for $5 extra, you get, fine, sure, I need more help giving blowjobs is always useful. What can I say, Cosmo, and so I ordered it, and I happened to stumble across this advertisement for the Cosmo first ever fiction contest. And I couldn't decide between one of 2 excerpts from my book. And then I decided, and I accidentally submitted the wrong one. And, and then I won. So,
wow.
Yeah, and it was really weird. When the woman called me, I thought I have a friend whose mother is from England, and the woman was from Australia, and because I am stupid, I thought it was my friend putting on an English
joke.
accent. Yeah. Also different accent totally, but it was tough to comprehend the words this woman was telling me.
Yeah.
So from then I did get an agent. She started shopping around this book, and then we couldn't find a publisher. It was good, but not good enough. And then, of course, from that, I did end up meeting some writer friends on Twitter. And one of them asked me if I could look over this self-help book she had written. And I realized that all of the 10 points she came up with were, in fact, scientifically provable, valid. Research. I don't have the word. Research proven. I got nothing here. Whatever. I know what you mean. Behind it. Yeah.
We can also put information below afterwards in the edit.
I think people will understand. And so I decided to ask her if she wanted a co-author, because it was due to come out in September of my 42nd birthday, and it felt like fate. that's the humorous story. It was due to come out in September, and then my co-author found out about the International Day of Happiness and managed to convince them to like endorse our book. And we were like, no, you know what? We're going to wait till March for this to come out.
Mm, man,
And then
man.
it came out to dead silence.
Well, hopefully this will help. Go get Finding Happiness, 10 Steps to Finding Happiness right now. I'm
Yep.
sure it's on all sorts of different
On
channels. We'll
Amazon,
put
it's on Barnes and Noble, and we just came out with an ebook for those of you that
you
like that.
you know like self-development, self-help. I hate the stigma that's with it. Self-help, like help as in a negative, like you need help, you can't do it yourself, you like, it's self-development, it's
Yeah,
self-improvement, it's self-care. Like that's what this is about. And why I love the idea of this book is because more and more people can be happy with the job that they have, can be happy with the life that they have. Not everyone is rolled the same opportunities, but I do believe you can make whatever pie you get from the ingredients you have, right? And
yeah,
some are very successful that come from being homeless to being beaten down as kids to young adults and make it, as in financially make it, or above that really is happiness. Because
yeah.
I'm not rich. I'm in my daughter's bedroom filming this because she's the only one that has a desk in this house, in this
Oh,
apartment. So
exactly.
literally, if you saw, I see all like the colorful drawings that she's done. It's very, very nice. It's it's a nice office, but it's her bedroom. And so, but I'm so thrilled and happy to be doing this and be talking to so many cool people like yourself. So it really comes down to that. So that's why I love, like, when you're talking about your story and sharing it, there's a lot of challenges
Yeah.
that's come up, like talking about releasing stuff at 9/11,
Yep.
releasing stuff at the coronavirus, people like judgment. You've kind of hit it all.
Yeah,
But yeah,
if this were a fiction book, I would not have chosen this many twists and turns because, like, it's annoying for the reader. I think it's like, come on, how can all these things go wrong?
be a good drama show.
I don't know.
Good,
I think it would be like a telenovela. We'd be like, no,
yeah.
it's not that. That's not your brother, you know?
My girlfriend loves that. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But like, that's why more people, especially during this time, like if you're laid off, unfortunately, if you're laid off or you're looking for something to do, like why not work on yourself, and why
Yeah.
not do something? And I can see that you're still here, like you're not only here to promote your book, but you're also here to share your experiences. I'm sure a lot of other women and men would share that circumstances, better or worse, right? And will can relate to you in that way. And that's why it's so powerful. Like I can only empathize. I have a different experience, different upbringing than yourself, but like, wow, like the I call it drive, but whatever you might call it is so, it's so there in you, you know?
I appreciate that. I think I've always thought of it as freedom's just another word for, nothing left to lose. There's my musical knowledge. I am, yes, I am. Listen, I want to promote my book because I want people to buy it because I spent 2 years of my life writing it, and I want to feel like this wasn't,
Hmm.
this book is not my swan song, but I think that right now we all could use this book and buy the ebook. It's cheaper and you don't have to worry about germs.
Hmm.
But
Get
I like,
instantly.
I hate ebooks. I like the smell of a book. So that's the
Right
reason.
now, I ordered a book on Amazon really quick. It's not coming until mid-May. It's a month to get anything online. Like,
Perhaps you should try ordering my book or just ebooking it.
yeah,
But
let's go online right now.
there you go. The interesting thing about writing this book was because it's myself, a co-author, and 24 expert writers.
Hmm.
And somewhere in the middle of it, I started really thinking hard about how we define happy and why is happiness an expectation? Like, why don't we believe that we have to work at it? Like, we get that we have to work to make money, fine. But it's like no one ever told us, we were told we should be happy, but no one ever told us that we would have to work at it.
Do you
And
think
that's, yeah,
perspective like falls into that? Like that, I know that, like, for instance, traveling, I got a way better perspective. And this is so cliche, but it's true. It's like seeing how other people live and that they're so happy. Like I went to Africa for 3 weeks and it changed my life. I now
Yeah.
look at the world so differently. And you do, and you have appreciation for water and food and all those sorts of stuff. Do you think perspective plays
I,
into this?
I think it's perspective. I think, and actually humorously, going back to that first like psychobiology class I accidentally placed into, my mind always goes back to like the caveman, like base human, like, well, listen, I don't remember where they fall in that era system. I'm sure I've studied that with one of my kids recently, but what was happiness then? Happiness was safety. It was like no one trying to kill you, food, and somewhere to sleep at night. And we've sort of forgotten that, and now we have different expectations. It's like when our kids tell us that they're bored. I don't care. Go do something, like I don't give a fuck if you're bored. Create something, build something. Like we have an art room in our house, and I'm big on like, my son is very creative. My daughter is just less inclined. She's more of like a theatrical, dramatic, occasional brat, but nonetheless. But yeah, I think we have this, and that's what came up for me with this book is, here are 10 ways you can be happier. But the first is you have to choose to be happy. And choosing is an action, and you have to make active choices. So none of our steps are like, every step is an action. This requires something of you. And particularly now, given the corona and quarantine and never-ending mess of an action movie that we appear to live in, it requires action of you. Two of my favorite steps, I told you I don't like vision boards, but like we do have like journaling, gratitude journal and all that stuff, or write something down every day that makes you happy. And if that's your thing, and if you read The Secret and you liked it the first time, then read it in the incarnation of karma. Because really it's just ways of mentally reminding ourselves. But there's other things where if you try something new, synapses and neurotransmitters in your brain have to work to connect differently in order for that. We call it muscle memory when it's physical, like when it's in our body, and there's a similar gist when it's in your brain. And so in order for those new connections to form, like happy hormones, all the things we want medication to do for us, or drugs or exercise or sex, you also get those when you try something new. It's your brain has to start firing them in order to make new connections, which is pretty cool.
Is that why we're so happy when we start something new?
Yes.
At least I feel like that.
Yep.
I feel like I'm like high off the world,
Yep, you are. You are. And also trying something new is also good for resiliency, because whether you succeed or fail, you're exposed to an experience where afterwards it's okay that you either were good at it or were not good at it. And it makes you more open to other experiences and to knowing that life doesn't end if you do something wrong. So this is a great time to try something new. I should, shameless plug, read my book, but like, in all honesty, try something new, like new.
Yeah. But it's so true. Like if I never tried to do what I'm doing right now, I would never have figured out that it was like awesome and so much fun, and I could spend hours doing it, so much that my girlfriend's like, "Are you gonna come out and see me?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, right. I also have other things." Yes, but it's just the truth, right? And so many people, at least in my audience, have that issue, have that challenge of just starting, and it's hard. It's like, you're not sure where, you're not sure what, you question yourself, and then you don't even try, right? But the key, it looks like what you're saying too, and what for me is I just did it. Like there was no plan. I just tried. And then once you actually take that first step, then you can look at, okay, what could be the next step? What would be a better way of using this time, or what have you?
Yeah, on my first two podcast episodes of the Neurotic Nourishment podcast were recorded on my friend's phone. Like we literally were just talking about it at the playground, and then we had nothing to do, and she came over and we like speaker phoned it, and then like we saw someone we liked, we asked them to be a guest, and then like our second or third guest was like, hey, do you guys know the word sound editing? And we did not. And like, it evolved. And eventually my former co-host decided it wasn't for her. And I decided this was my voice. And I thrive off getting this experience. And so, yes, it was trying something new. And this week I actually made the decision not to put out another episode an episode this week, although I have them. I just felt like it didn't feel genuine in terms of what was going on. And I felt comfortable, and that's new for me because I usually feel this pressure about, putting out something new every week. And so that felt kind of good too. The other tip from our book that I really like is find your passion, find your purpose, which is exactly what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Again, couldn't agree more. Like I found that I'm the perfect example that I literally stumbled across this because I moved to Montreal from Vancouver, BC, West Coast to the East. And my girlfriend had a camera and there was the opportunity right there. It's like, there's no excuse anymore. No excuse of, camera equipment is expensive. It's competitive. I don't know what to do. I don't have the money for it. She has it. She will be happy to lend it to me. And I did. And then like before you knew it, just love it and researching about it. And it's like a snowball effect. Once you find that passion, that fulfillment, right? It brings me happiness.
Sure. I mean, I had already started writing my next book, and then which was just going to be for teens and their parents to talk about suicide together. And then I stumbled across this story that it has just captured me, and it's, historical, and I want to make it historical and fiction and all this, and it's this ridiculously overwhelming project, but I feel so passionate about it. Like, I don't mind if we're quarantined for another 6 months because that'll give me the time to do it as long as I get handcuffs and lock my kids up for like half the day. But that's allowed, I think, during quarantine. So,
yeah. In your book, is there, so 10 steps, obviously you talked about a lot about like 2, 3, and maybe 4 steps. Is that all of them psychological? Or is there some like you have to physically go out and do something? Or is it more like you're at home writing it out, as you said, journaling or a vision board?
I hate that shit. I hate all that shit. If I didn't make that clear. Yeah, it's mostly active things you can do.
Okay.
We call them concrete actions, although I fought for 3 months to find a more clever name. And finally I gave up because I decided it wasn't worth fighting. And they literally are concrete actions. It's not just in your head. It also has to do with the people you choose to remain in your life,
Because I found that, like, I found some books are more hypothetical, maybe is the word, but in your head. And I'm like you, I'm more of a doing learner. And so I need someone to, like, if I'm reading that, to say, okay, go and write out your thoughts, your feelings. And I will close the book and go do that. And that way I'm taking, instead of reading the full, because I could read a book in one night, but then I'm not going to retain much out of that night. So I try, all right, here's the first step. Here's the first chapter. I'm going to make sure I understand it, do it perfectly, and then move on to the next. But some of the books I've read, I should say a lot of the books that I've read are more like in your head, not so much action based.
Yeah, my co-author spends what I thought was like an absurdly long time discussing a notebook and like the type of notebook and how you pick a notebook and the colors, and I was just like, this is so boring. Can't we just cut this down? But the truth is, there is something to say about writing and accountability. She also has a lot of quotes in that book, so it's a lot of quotes. At one time, there were more quotes than there were pages in the book, so it's a struggle, but they're good quotes and they're inspirational quotes. But there's also at the end of there are concrete actions, and they're like real easy things, like go sing in the shower, because singing is something you can do, and it makes you feel better. It releases those hormones. It's it's tough to be and it doesn't matter whether you're like, let's say you're sad. This isn't okay, go listen to a happy song. This is a go listen to whatever makes you feel better, because sometimes listening to a sad song just makes you realize you're not alone.
I like that. I like that tip. I'm going to do that tip, because it's true. When you're singing, you're never like, you're singing, you're happy, you're,
Yeah.
you like the song. And so it makes you feel a certain way. Yeah. I like that.
And even like I have a lot of, angsty, suicidal teenagers, and their parents are like, oh, they're always listening to sad music. And so I researched it. I was like, is there a difference? Nope, there's no difference. Let them listen to what makes them feel good, or what makes them feel less alone. And so it could be as easy as singing, obviously exercise, and
Mm-hmm.
vitamin D. And these are the things we have to watch, that we're getting enough of during this quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
But they're really solid. And even the trying something new, thanks to technology, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of online classes, both physical and mental, and artsy stuff, and all of those things. So it's just about, now I'm really glad for the concrete actions, even though they say concrete actions. But
Mm-hmm.
there's also, for an issue of perspective, like you said before, one of my favorite pieces in the book is written by a dance and movement therapist who works in a pediatric palliative care unit. So she works with dying children. And she talks about how she brings happiness to their lives and how this makes her happy.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was
Wow.
really powerful. And there's I also have an art therapist, a mindfulness expert. Like, there's a lot of practical advice in there. And then there's also different people's perspectives who have been through things or redefined happiness or
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So there is a lot, it's a lot of information and a lot of things that you should use a notebook for, and not your not your phone or your computer, because there's a different sort of learning that comes from writing, like by hand, because it's more automatic. And so it sinks in a different way.
Hmm. I'm thinking back to your point about the cavemen and how, or even earlier than that, you said happiness, you have to work on it, just like work, just like working out. It could almost be like a muscle that you have to work out to be happy, have a happy life. And you're saying it right. It's journaling, it's singing in the shower, it's daily activities you do to make yourself happy. If that's dancing, drawing, listening to music in the shower, whatever, it could be a million of things, but do whatever is best for you to have that. Because when you're the happiest, like right now, I'm like ecstatic. I could have been tired all day, but now after this podcast, I'm gonna do something else like crazy, and I can ride this high of happiness. And so I love that. I think you hit the nail on the head with this book. I'm so sorry I launched during this time, but there are
Of
ways.
course it launched, but this is me. Of course it launched during this time.
But you're doing well right now. Like you're going on podcasts, you're going online, and you're letting people know about it. And it's like your selfish ask. You're giving a lot of value, right? You're giving a lot of tips away right now of your
Sure.
book, and that's what I love. Like, if someone were to come on the show and only talk about that or try to just sell, I probably wouldn't have them on the show, right? So
Yeah.
it's with you and with all the guests I've had, it's always about bringing that value, trying to spread that happiness, right? And that's what I love about your story. You're laughing at the fact that I can't believe you live in what do you say, Nutella Nueva, right?
Yeah,
And
telenovela. Yeah, literally, it's too many twists and turns, but it's true. Listen, I also on Facebook, mental health. Damn, my husband named him. What is it called? Mental wellness consultants. Like,
nice.
I try to go on there once or twice a week and give like a 15-minute live on like, this is what to, like how to deal with your kids during quarantine, or how to do this or how to do that. I have a YouTube channel that I'm learning to use also. It's Dr. Lindsay Weisner or something along those lines. And like, I'm trying to do the same thing because I do want to help people. I'm still seeing patients, obviously, and that's nice too. But I'm happy to help wherever I can.
Mm-hmm.
I would like people to buy my book because I would like to write more books. But,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think there's a number of books that, like, I don't think there's a number small enough that would make me be like, I'm never writing a book again, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the third time's got to be the charm. There can't possibly be another like world-ending catastrophe. Just maybe there can. Who knows? But either way, I think I
Yeah.
would do it a fourth time. It's something I love doing.
We'll cross our fingers. And
Yes.
that's the point. That's the whole idea and why I started this is because sometimes people mistaken this as like, oh, I made it, and really what I'm trying to convey is people that I interview are still trying to make their goals a reality. Whether they achieve them or not, they're going to have bigger and more ambiguous goals. So, doctor. Some people are successful entrepreneurs, but success is it's not one way, one definition, right? It's to your point. It's finding that happiness. Maybe it's having a balance between your family and your business. Maybe it's playing softball on the weekends. I don't know, but it's that's what this is about. It's making your dream, whether it be podcasting, writing a book, happen. And you just have the best example of going through so much curveballs after curveballs, but you're gonna hit a home run. It's gonna happen.
Either gonna hit a home run or knock some kid in the stands in the head and then be barred from ever playing again.
No, that won't happen. That won't happen. You're gonna hit a home run, or at least hit. I don't know baseball enough to use this analogy.
I was surprised that you went with baseball instead of something more Canadian.
This analogy, I'm losing it, but you're gonna hit it, and you're gonna hit the bases, and that's the whole point of life. Like, it's ups and downs, it's crazy, and there's no such thing as a linear, like, non up and down life. It just doesn't exist.
I agree, and it would be boring if it did. I think we wouldn't try as hard.
Yeah. Someone said, another guest, that life is like your lifeline. Like when your heart is beating, that's your life. You don't want to be like this because then you're dead. You want to be like this. So
a weird, depressing, but valid point. Yeah.
True. So we're coming up to the hour mark. What do you have? Is there any last minute thoughts in your mind that you want to say? A last tip, something, maybe a call to action for our audiences to obviously buy this book, but do something different during this quarantine.
Right. So
what's your thoughts?
You can follow me on Instagram at PsychShrinkMom, or on Twitter at Lindsay S. Callen, Kallen. But my real call to action is this. I know that things will get better because they've gotten better before. We got through 9/11. We've gotten through Hurricane Katrina. We got through, I'm thinking locally, but, we got through tsunamis. We've gotten through devastation and despair. We've gotten through all these things that seemed impossible at the time. So I know that we will get through this, and you just have to believe it and keep it into perspective. And I'm pretty sure, I think Bruce Willis might be too old. Maybe Liam Neeson or someone cool will show up and drill a hole in the earth, or, plant a bomb on an asteroid or something. And until then, just remember that we've gotten through shit just as bad as this beforehand, and it only feels as awful because we're going through it now.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And you don't think about those moments, right? You only think about the moment you live in awe. And so many people that I know have really, really bad anxiety. And it's hard. Like it is scary, but it's like, I feel like they're self-destructing a little bit, but it's hard to go through.
It's funny. A lot of my patients with severe anxiety, the first week, they were just chuckling. They're like, everyone else feels like I do now. It's great. It's like being understood. And so I thought that was funny.
That is funny. I think that's perspective. I think the more you read, the more you understand how the world globally works, that you interview people like this and you understand people's stories, you get perspective. And now I have your perspective of life. So next time someone cuts me off at Starbucks, I'm not going to mouth them off as much as I normally would. I'm going to have, I'll have a better, appreciation that the fact that I can go out and do that. And some people are scared to go outside, yeah. That's such a cool message. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was amazing to get to know you again and to hear about your amazing stories. I wish you the best of luck with your book. I will put all your contact information either below or in the description. And again, this is the Making Up podcast with the amazing Lindsay. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank you.
Tyler Miles, and we're signing off.